Oh, do eat up, Picard. Raise your hand if you want seconds.
Riker, thank God. We're leaving.
All right, what's going on today, everybody? I got a video here for you from myself, actually. Make sure to like the video if you actually enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel. This one is my top 5 conspiracies. These are basically of my own creation. They could exist elsewhere, but I decided to make them my own based on my own experiences and based on things that I've read online. All right, let's get into this one. Let's go. So as you can tell by the intro, Mr. Schwab wants us to eat the bugs. So I want to read this here for you this is from Google AI. Ontario-based insect farm establishment. Based on the search results, there are several notable insect farms in Ontario. Now, some of them were built about, I think there was a brand new one built in 22 and there was another one built in 23. I don't know which one was built recently, but we have Aspire, the world's largest cricket production facility located in London, Ontario, produces 9,000 metric tons of crickets yearly for human and pet consumption. So your pets are probably eating them too. We got Entomo Farms. I think this was one of the ones that was built. An insect protein producer based in Peterborough, Ontario, sells cricket protein powder and faces challenges in the market due to uncompetitive pricing and public perception. Who would have thought we didn't want to eat the bugs? Who would have thought that? Then we have Next Millennial Farm, an Ontario-based farm that supplied crickets to restaurants and companies, including Exo, a US-based cricket protein bar manufacturer. Always read the ingredients list. They go by many different names. You can find them online. And then we have the Bug Farms. Although not a specific farm location, the Bug Farms is an insect product specialist that aims to provide sustainable and environmentally friendly insects and insect products. These farms are contributing to the growth of the insect-based food industry in Ontario, addressing challenges such as public acceptance and pricing. The industry, if you can make 9,000 metric tons of insects every year, you don't have a problem with pricing. The industry is also working on automation, new bio-waste feed formulas, and education to increase demand. So that we want education to increase demand for it. Great. And mainstream adoption. Yeah, I don't want to eat the bugs. Okay. All right. So this is a Canadian Food Focus article. Insect farming in Canada. So if you doubted it before now, well, now you really can't doubt it. I mean, pretty much, I guess if you don't know about the bugs, then you're not really paying attention. Human food aside, I mean, what else are we worried about? Insects can also be used for a variety of other things like pet food and livestock. So even if you don't eat the bugs, the cows that you do eat are going to be eating the bugs. Getting edible insects and insect-based ingredients to processors and store shelves requires consistent production. That means rearing the critters on farms. Insects have many issues. Really. Insects are used in many things, including human food products, livestock, feed, pet food, and non-food products like cosmetics. A cricket farm, for example, might feature what is called cricket condos. I mean, they want us to eat the bugs and then they want us to live like the crickets in the cricket condos, right? That is, small towers which provide housing for the insects within the barn. Entomo Farms in Ontario, which we have that on the Google result, uses this system to produce cricket-based snacks and protein powders. On the other hand, a totally different type of housing would be needed to raise flies. Oh, Jesus. They don't even want us to eat the bugs. They want us to eat the flies, too. Canada's largest insect farming company, Terra, I think that might have been one of the other ones that I heard of, raises black soldier flies in vertical farming style facilities. Oh, Jesus. This is what you're eating, folks, right here. At any given time, the company's Calgary location, Terra, features 3 football fields worth of farming space under one roof. At any given time, 3 billion insects at various growth stages live within the structure. Why the black soldier fly? It is native to North America. All right. Adult flies are easy to work with. All right. Final products are high quality protein. The upcycle nutrients from which would otherwise go into the landfill. Oh, great. You kind of get an idea. This is a Canadian website. Blah. All right, let's go on to the next thing. All right. So next up, we have sort of in line with the cockroaches farms that are in Canada. We have this here. We have red dye number 40, also known as Allure Red. Red dye number 40. Again, I use Google AI to get these results. I knew these beforehand, so it does confirm the things that I've said before about it. I'll get into it after I read the thing here. Red dye number 40, also known as Allure Red AC, is a synthetic food dye derived from petroleum. Look up and see what is made from petroleum for yourself. It is widely used in food products, beverages. It is not only made by petroleum, it is also made by cricket wings, I believe. There's a specific type of cricket. Let's see if it mentions it here. It is also widely used in food products, beverages, and cosmetics to impart a bright red color. Approved by regulatory agencies, red dye 40 is approved by both the US FDA and the EU authorities for use in food products. However, I'll get to that in a minute. Contamination with carcinogens. Some studies have detected benzidine, a human and animal carcinogen, in red dye number 40. However, the FDA has deemed the levels of contaminations are safe. Of course they are. And has not banned the dye. We'll see who has banned the dye. Hyperactivity concerns. There is ongoing debate and mixed research on whether red dye 40 contributes to hyperactivity in children. While some studies suggest a link, others have found no correlations. And I'm willing to bet that the studies that have found a link were probably actually correctly done, and the studies that said there's no correlation were probably funded by the companies that actually use this product. To avoid red dye number 40, consumers should read labels carefully, as it is commonly found in just about everything you consume. It is very hard to find a product that is red. Cinnamon rolls even have Allure Red in them. So you won't always see it. They did change it in Canada. I always knew it as red dye 40. I used to eat a lot of licorice. I did stop after I found out what the red dye number 40 was. And the simple reason that I found it out was I was looking at the ingredients, which I have for years and years and years now. Not because I'm some kind of health nut. I'm probably just because I'm paranoid. I noticed that it had changed from red dye 40 to Allure Red. I was like, well, what the heck is this? Did they change it? Because I knew in 2022, Health Canada had gone through a bunch of changes with their labeling policies. So they did change it. And when I looked up what Allure Red was, I was shocked to find out this. Red dye number 40 or Allure Red is banned in the UK. According to the search results, Red 40, also known as Allure Red AC, is banned in the United Kingdom due to health concerns. This information is supported by multiple sources, including a 2021 article stating that Red 40 is banned in the UK and Switzerland due to health concerns, a 2023 article highlighting the EU's ban on Red 40, as well as its links to asthma and other respiratory problems, which is also applicable to the UK as well as the EU's regulations prior to Brexit. While Red 40 is approved for use in the US, its use is still restricted. It is completely banned in the UK, reflecting a different regulatory approach to food additives between the two countries. It is also legal in Canada. Now, I read a study that essentially linked it with lots of different problems. So I myself have chosen not to consume it. You can look up for yourself what contains it. I do know, just for offhand, the things that I know that contain it. I know licorice contains it. I know cinnamon rolls contain it. So if you buy baked cinnamon rolls at the supermarket, they will contain Allure Red in it. Why? I have absolutely no idea. Any of the Pillsbury cookies that you buy will have red dye number 40 or Allure Red in it. There is another name, but I can't remember what it's called. And then some things use annatto, which is another red type of dye, and I'm sure that's probably synthetic too, although when I Google search it, it actually says it comes from a plant. It's probably better than from petroleum or cricket wings. and Fruitopia. Fruitopia contains red dye number 40. So my question for you is, if it is banned in the UK due to health concerns, due to studies and stuff that have banned, they've said this is not good for us, why has Canada, the rest of even some of the rest of Europe, why is Canada and the US still say, hey, guess what? Nah, it's okay. Let's get into this one. Now, these are conspiracy theories. Well, the first two really aren't conspiracy theories. They're said to be conspiracy theories by, mainstream media, whatever the hell that means. Anyway, this one is something that I noticed while I was looking up, when did, the quote unquote welfare state start in Canada? When was unemployment insurance put in? And it led me down this little bit of a rabbit hole where I was looking through the prime ministers of Canada. What I found was this. I'm not sure how well it'll come out here. We had Sir John A. Macdonald, who died in office June 6, 1891, of a stroke. When he died, he was a member of something that is called the Liberal Conservative Party, which you can see here was the original name of the Conservative Party up until 1921 when it was changed. And then we have John Abbott, who took over for him for about a year and a half. John Abbott got sick in office. He died, I believe it was October of 1893. So again, we have Sir John A. Macdonald, who dies in office. We have John Abbott, who gets sick and then dies about less than a year later. Okay, age is a factor, sure, but bear with me here for a second. Then we have, after John Abbott leaves due to his illness, we have John Sparrow David Thompson, who took over for John Abbott, and within about 2 years, he died of a heart attack in office. Prime ministers in Canada do not have an end date like presidents of the United States, for example. Presidents can only run 2 terms, basically a maximum of 8 years. Yes, the shadow government and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure there's other people running behind the scenes, and I'm sure the same is the case for Canada. However, we have a situation where a prime minister can essentially be in there until from the moment that they get in till the moment that they die, that they can actually stay prime minister. So that is not the conspiracy, because that is actually true. We have 3 members of the Liberal Conservative Party who all 3 of them either got sick and died or died in office within a roughly 3-year span. And then we get another conservative member, Mackenzie Bowell, who takes over for John Sparrow David Thompson, who died of a heart attack. He takes over. As soon as he takes over, this issue of the Manitoba schools question breaks out. Essentially, I'll try to be as brief as I can with this. When Mackenzie Bowell took over for John Sparrow David Thompson and then got hit with a scandal, and the scandal was a premier of Manitoba, Malcolm Colin Cameron, member of the Liberal Party, basically passed into law things that prevented the province from helping, I believe it was Catholic schools at the time, from receiving any funding from the government. Now bear with me, this is a bit of a long one. I'm going to bring it back to the beginning in a minute. He basically enacted into law something that would prevent Catholic schools from receiving funding. Now at the time, I think it was 1894 when he actually brought this motion into play, or he put this bill forward and it passed. Essentially at the time, the majority of people that were Catholic were French Canadian, or French, Francophone. And what that meant was they had to privately fund any school that they wanted to be taught with Catholicism. So what happened was, because of this, it created a huge problem in Manitoba, where the French-speaking people basically were upset that the government was no longer going to be funding their schools. Essentially, this all boiled down to where Mackenzie Bowell ended up resigning due to this conflict. Now, the key thing to remember is the premier of Manitoba at the time was a member of the Liberal Party. So when he resigned, Charles Tupper takes over. Then Charles Tupper takes over. He was essentially in office for about 4 months, and the scandal had gotten so bad with this Manitoba schools problem. Wilfrid Laurier, who was the MP for Quebec, he basically called an election. And Wilfrid Laurier, who is pretty renowned in Canada as a pretty good prime minister, at least at the time, he called an election. Charles Tupper was then removed. Charles Tupper, a member of the Conservative Party. Again, we see Sir John A., John Abbott, John David Sparrow Thompson, Mackenzie Bowell, and Charles Tupper, where in the span of 5 years, we have 5 different prime ministers, 3 of which died, and the other 2 of which were mired in the Manitoba schools question. We have Wilfrid Laurier, who comes in and says, hey, let's do an election. And because of this, and because of the predominantly French-speaking people in Quebec, who he was the MP for, they were essentially able to secure the prime minister's role for Wilfrid Laurier. Did some good things, as most prime ministers do. They do some good things and they do some bad things. However, I'm finding more and more as I dig deeper into this rabbit hole that the Liberal Party is not the party that anybody thought it was. We have 5 prime ministers, 3 of which died, 2 of which were mired into a scandal, and then the Liberal Party takes over. From the moment Wilfrid Laurier takes over in 1896. Hi, it's me again. I forgot to mention that Mackenzie Bell actually tried to introduce legislation, but was shut down by the Liberal Party, basically legislation to actually end the Manitoba schools question. And then, surprisingly enough, when Wilfrid Laurier came in, he actually enacted the exact same policy. And because the Premier of Manitoba at the time was also a member of the Liberal Party, they actually managed to come to a conclusion. How convenient. A successful run of mostly the Liberal Party for the next 100+ years. There are some things where Stephen Harper and stuff gets in. And this isn't to pick sides, liberal or conservative. The conspiracy theory is, at the time that this occurred, where there was 3 deaths back to back and 2 scandals, it makes me believe that something more was involved here. I won't get too deeper into it because this rabbit hole goes very, 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 very deep. There is a lot of scandals that come up with the Liberal Party after this. That might be I think I might put an entire video up of the rabbit hole. It'll be most likely unedited, so you'll have to forgive that. You know, they just happen to be old enough to pass away. Or, you know, in the case of John Sparrow, David Thompson, he was not that old. He died suddenly of a heart attack in office. So, again, it's just a conspiracy theory of mine. Maybe the Liberal Party had something to do with it. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, so this one, I remember, I don't know if any other fellow Nova Scotians remember this one. In 2020, I believe it was in Cape Breton, there was a story of a gang of wolves or something that was apparently roaming the area. Now, this article here on the Canadian Patriot says that there was actually, it could potentially have been a government psyop. So let's read from the article here. Among the stranger aspects was scaring Canadians with stories of a wolf invasion. This, according to the Post, involved Canadian Forces military information operations staff forging a letter from the Nova Scotia government warning about the wolves on the loose in September of 2020. Post, the Canadian National Post, claims the letter's release was inadvertent and basically ran with the Canadian Forces claim that this was down to a few bad apples, reservists who lacked formal training and policies governing the use of propaganda techniques. And this is one that I could find some information on. I'll touch on a few towards the end of this segment. Canadian journalist Dan Dix, who was among the first to report on and analyze the wolf stories, noted at the time this was a classic example of a psychological operation. Now, I had heard this at the time. What I had heard, I'll before I read the rest of this article, I'll tell you what I remember hearing about a few cottages or a few homes. I believe it was in Cape Breton, although it might have been like somewheres along that side of Nova Scotia, like maybe New Glasgow or something like that, where there was a few houses in a small rural area that heard a bunch of howling of wolves at like basically at all hours of the day. And people had called the cops. They couldn't find any traces of these wolves. Some people believed at the time that there might have been speakers put into the woods and basically caused what caused people to stay inside at the time. It's been a few years now, so that's roughly what I remember. But anyways, let's continue reading here. Let's see what Dan Dix has to say. Dix also pointed out what the National Post omitted, highlighting they created a fake letter from the government saying there are dangerous wolves, and they set up loudspeakers in the area projecting out wolf noises. This isn't just research. This isn't just a training exercise. They're actively engaging in this psychological operation to scare people using loudspeakers. This is what I had heard. Psyops, he noted, is a term used to denote any action which is practiced by many psychological methods with the aim of evoking a planned psychological reaction in other people. And they are aimed at influencing a target audience's value system, belief system, emotions, motives, reasoning, or behavior. Canadian journalist James Corbett likewise commented on the post at this time, pointing out how a rumor is floated to see how the public reacts. So again, it's either it was a psyop or there was a rumor that there was a potential psyop to see how people would react. This entire coordinated campaign to convince an entire public of a threat that doesn't exist in order to test how they will react to it. What will the public respond to and how will they respond? Right. So even if there is no psyop, the psyop could actually be the story that there's a psyop, right? That really speaks volumes to the worlds that we live in. And you really think they are going to do all of that, but they are never going to use that for any nefarious purposes. An article in the Ottawa Citizen noted at the time that Canadians' Department of National Defence claimed the fake letter wasn't meant to be released to the public, and an investigation is under to determine what happened. The letter was an aid for the propaganda training. Again, we have some admittance that there was some level of propaganda here. The department also claimed to not know why the loudspeaker was set up to transmit wolf sounds. So again, we are confirming that there was a loudspeaker that was transmitting wolf sounds. That was from the Department of National Defense. I guess a member of the public who read the letter must have taken it upon themselves to set up the loudspeaker then. Maybe somebody did. The same Ottawa Citizen article cites Bard College professor Emma Bryant, who specializes in researching military propaganda, calling the stunt a major violation of ethics. But there was a lot of strange things that happened that year. There was a lot of things that I had heard about the protests that were happening in Ontario. There was rumors of people saw military that they had never seen before. I've never saw any pictures of it. This is a conspiracy video. Again, it's not to say that any of this is true. And then I had heard that they were using sound weapons. There was all kinds of different things, stories and stuff that came out. There was a video I had watched from a YouTuber who they do like walking. I don't know what they're called. They're called like, they walk around the city or whatever, and they record for a few hours. I forget his name. If I remember it, I'm going to put it right here, if I remember it, when I'm editing the video. And he had a video where while these things were going on, while these protests and stuff were going on, he walked past, I think it was the military base. I can't remember exactly. It was an airport maybe. He was not allowed to walk on the same sidewalk at this point in time, this night. He was not allowed to walk on that sidewalk because it was surrounded by military, and he filmed from further away. He was not allowed to point his camera towards there. They would, he did get a warning at one point, I believe. And I think he was live streaming. It probably got taken down. Anyways, what he had recorded was about 3 or 4 very large military cargo planes that were landing at this specific time. I don't remember how many people were watching at the time, maybe 10 or 12,000 people watching his live stream at the time. He was doing a lot of live streaming of the protests and stuff, basically on man on the street kind of thing. They did threaten to take away his camera, I believe, if I remember the video correctly. I could be misconstruing it with a bunch of other people that had their things being threatened to taken away from them. Again, was it a psyop? Could this person have been working for the military, which I believe somebody had asked them even in the live chat. These little pieces start fitting in together. Then I read that I found that there was apparently a bunch of cargo planes carrying some type of soldiers. I never saw a video of this. I never saw any pictures of it. Couldn't find anything online about it. Just anecdotally, somebody had mentioned that there was a bunch of ships, planes that had come into Manitoba sometime in the last 4 years, carrying upwards of 150,000 troops from somewhere. Now, could they have been potentially refugees and stuff? It's very possible. Anyways, that's the conspiracy theory. Basically, I went down the Canadian psyop rabbit hole. The majority of it was the wolves and that whole thing where they did find a speaker. I thought they had found a speaker, but I couldn't quite remember until I read the article. They did find a speaker, but who knows if that was actually set up by maybe somebody around that was just trying to cause trouble. All right, let's get into the next one. This one's going to be the short one. Essentially, this one, it basically came from a conversation that I had recently with somebody that worked at a solar panel company in Canada. From the video that I did with the 21 ways to create a one world government, I saw the actual EV, like over its usage, how much energy it would actually produce. And where it was one of the lowest energy production things on there, I decided to contact solar panel companies in the area to sort of get an idea of what what the cost was, how much would I save, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The things that people normally do. Now, the reason why I think this is a conspiracy is because after speaking with this individual, I actually think this is one of the worst scams going right now. But again, do your own research. Make sure you decide that you want to have solar panels. There is an upside. But anyway, so this one here is the solar panel energy yield durability. So this one says the expected lifespan of solar panels is 40 to 50 years, with typically lasting 25. Degradation rate. So over the 25 years, the median solar panel degradation is about 0.5% per year. So over 25 years, 12 to 15% decline in the amount of energy that's produced. Solar panels installed as early as the 1980s are still working at expected capacity, which means if they've been around for 50 years, they are currently operating at about 25 to 30% less than they were when they were installed, which means eventually there is a zero-sum game there. Proper installation, maintenance, and environmental conditions, such as temperature and debris, can impact solar panel longevity. In summary, solar panels are designed to last for several decades. They will not, and that is speaking anecdotally, they will most likely not last you several decades. They will most likely need to be replaced within 10 to 15 years. And one of the other things that made me want to talk about the solar panels was when I went to PEI recently, their solar panels were on the ground, which seemed to make a little bit more sense to me, because I'm like, well, if you install them on your roof like they do in Nova Scotia, what happens when your roof degrades? I mean, if you have a metal roof, which supposedly is supposed to last for a lifetime, in Nova Scotia, the roofs are supposed to last for approximately, when you sign up, like originally they were like 30 years. Now they're 25, maybe even 20 now. But a roof in Nova Scotia typically lasts you for 10 to 15 years. After about 15 years, you're probably going to have to replace it. So if these last for 25 years, then you have to replace your roof after 15 years. You have to have somebody come in and remove the solar panels. But this leads me to the conversation that I had with the person from this company. Essentially, what he had said to me was, I would save X amount of money off my power bill, and it would be much more sustainable and all this other great stuff that he was telling me. But when we actually did the calculations, my power bill roughly every 2 months is about $200. And when we did the final tally, I believe the solar panels for my place would be approximately about $50,000. Now that is an estimate. That is the cost. That's what it would cost me. It would cost me 50 grand. Now I could finance that over 10 years with a 0% interest. All right, that sounds reasonable. Oh, there's roughly, you can get about a $15,000 rebate from the government. Great. So it's about $35,000 over 10 years. No interest. Sounds good. When we broke it down, I would end up paying I think it was around $310 every 2 months. All right, you can argue that extra $100 that I would be spending, after 10 years, I would have a reduced power bill. So instead of paying my power bill, I'm now paying the financing on the solar panels. However, that was only given up to a certain amount of power, and the power is converted to a dollar value. So if I'm using, say, 1,000 kilowatt hours a month or every 2 months, and the base rate goes up from whatever it is now, say $1 to $2, then in essence, whatever I don't make up in terms of that money, I would still have a power bill for at the end, which to me I was just like, wait a minute, why on earth am I paying 50 grand for solar panels, which that rebate does not cover the taxes on, by the way? Why on earth would I want to pay this amount of money, and then potentially in 5 years when rates go up, I would potentially still have to pay the power company? Now, the other part of that is, even though let's even say that I produce, because my house is perfectly in line with the sun for about 80% of the day, so I have perfect conditions to set up solar panels to produce the maximum amount of wattage possible. So I would basically be able to create a whole bunch of energy from my panels. I would be able to use some of that for my house, and the rest of it would go into the system. I'm okay with that. If the rates go up, then I may potentially in a few years have to continue to pay some power bill if for whatever reason my house does not produce enough power to cover my own house. I would still have a power bill. Now, on top of that, Nova Scotia Power has a maintenance fee. They still have to collect some money. That's understandable, sure. It ends up being about $36 every 2 months. So add that onto the $310. So I'm now paying $150 every 2 months more than I'm paying now for the next 10 years of my life. Does it help the environment? I'm sure that it does. And one of the reasons why I wanted to share this sort of story is that it doesn't seem to sort of pan out. The way, to me, the way, what you should have is, well, as I had set up in a cottage at one time, I had solar batteries, solar cells, whatever they're called, solar panels. The panels would charge the batteries up. Then the batteries could be used to power whatever I needed to, lights, whatever else inside the cottage. Every house should be equipped with that. I don't know if that's an option. This person said that it was not an option. If you want me completely removed from the system, I would not have the Nova Scotia Power, so they would end up losing money, and they can't do that because they have to protect them. I would be completely removed from the system. I would be completely independent. I would also not, if I don't produce enough power with my solar panels, I would still be drawing power from Nova Scotia Power. I would still have solar panels, and I would still be burning the oil that's used to create all the energy for Nova Scotia. So to me, it does not make any sense why I would install solar panels. Now, maybe for you, it might. Maybe you have, I don't know what you can possibly have running in your house. I have a massive computer system that I run pretty much now lately every day, and my power bill has stayed the same. But even during those times, I like to decorate the house for Halloween. I like to decorate the house for Christmas. Even during those times, my power bill jumps by roughly about $25 per month. So even given those circumstances, it still does not even come close to just the cost of the solar panels. That's not to say any other costs. Now, there could be insurance costs on top of that. Oh, you have solar panels. Well, solar panels in Nova Scotia are a liability, and you may have to pay more in insurance. I never got into any of those conversations, but these are things that you should actually look into for yourself if you decide to get solar panels. Now, my conspiracy is it is just a way to make you keep paying something, and then on top of paying that, you also have your own power bill that you potentially could have. And remember, solar panels on sunny days will create power. On not sunny days, they do not create any power. So Nova Scotia, where it is the weather is very, very unstable, and we have lots of cloudy days. We have lots of periods of sun. We have lots of cloudy days. Now, you will get some amount during the daytime. I believe it's not a lot. At least I used to with the cottage and stuff like that, with the batteries being charged. There was still some even on cloudy days, but with Nova Scotia weather being the way that it is, so imagine I'm paying $310 every 2 months, and then I start getting a power bill because it has been cloudy for the last 2 months. Then I start getting a power bill for, say, $150, $200, or whatever it is. To me, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. To me, it seems like one ginormous scam, but do your own research. It is my conspiracy theory that it is an absolute scam, but make your own decisions. Do the research for yourself. Talk to somebody wherever you are about solar panels and see what they tell you. And then make sure you do the math. Make sure you dig really deep into it, and not just on the surface. A lot of people think I'm doing the right thing, and I might spend a little bit more on paying for the solar panels, but eventually I will get a return on it because then I won't have a power bill. Now, I'd also asked the person that had the solar panel company, I had asked them if I could pay the amount up front. And what do you think the answer was? A resounding no. I asked him, can I give you $50,000 in cash right here, right now, or write you a check right now, pay for this, and then you guys install it, then I never have a fee? Well, no, because they want to have the money over the next 10 years. It's the same as purchasing a vehicle now. If you said you wanted to go in, I know 3 or 4 people now that have gone to try to purchase a vehicle, brand new one. They had money in the bank. They went to purchase it. They had a problem. They ended up charging, I think, at least 2 people that I know, they ended up charging them some type of accounting fee, which ended up being almost the equivalent of about 3 years of interest. So it was absolutely insane, some of the stuff that they're doing. Make sure you don't eat the bugs. Make sure you don't fall into some of these other scams that are going on right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. And don't always believe everything that you hear, even from me. Bye. Roofs. Now the word doesn't make any sense anymore.